Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. If you'll allow us just one more minute for the participants to join, we will greatly appreciate it. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. My name is Andrea Roncoroni. I'm here on behalf of TRACCS, welcoming everyone to this meeting. Today, in our TRACCS webinar series, we will be welcoming a conversation on rail consortiums. Here we have Mark Salzberg, our chairperson. Hi, Mark. How are you today?
Hey, everyone. This is really exciting for us, and thank you for attending. We have the International Transportation Learning Center here, working on ways to help training our industry and getting people more focused and accustomed to the rail environment. We're really privileged to have both Jack Clark, Executive Director, Julie Deibel-Pundt, I hope I pronounced it properly, and my apologies if I didn't, and Amri, Joyner. And I'll just read their bios right now. If anyone has any questions, just some housekeeping. If anyone has any questions, please type them into the chat, and we'll try and get to them as quickly as possible. We have a whole slew of guests on top of the International Transportation Learning Center, and Julie and Jack and Amri will introduce them shortly. So without further ado, Jack Clark is the Executive Director with over 20 years of experience in government workforce development systems and sector development work. Jack brings deep expertise in the areas of worker training and career ladders, a Ford Foundation Kennedy School of Government Award for Innovations in State and Local Government winner. Prior to joining the center, Jack served as Deputy Director in the Mayor's Office of Jobs and Community Services in Boston. We have, with Jack, we have Julie. Julie has over a decade of experience in instructional systems design, in which she holds a master's level certificate. She also has a master's in urban planning and bachelor's degree in human geography. She's been employed at nonprofits for all her professional career and was driven to join the center in 2008 because of her passion around equity and the role mobility plays. And finally, we have Amri, who has been with the center since 2011 and helps design learning in transit maintenance occupations in elevator, escalator, signals, rail car, and traction power. Prior to joining the center, Amri's career included urban planning and designing and delivering training in information technology, union organizing, and leadership development. So thank you for your time and your expertise, and we're looking forward to hearing how potentially the Learning Center can help with the Canadian market. So I will pass it off to Julie.
Thanks, Mark. And Amri will pull up our presentation here. Thanks to Mark and Andrea for making this happen, and also for all those of you on the line that have joined today, found time in your, I'm sure, busy schedules to join us. In a moment here, Amri will pull up the agenda for today. We really want to leave a lot of time for discussion. So we're doing a short presentation up front, 15-20 minutes or so, where we'll introduce the it looks like you've got Hall of Mirrors there, Amri, instead of sharing the PowerPoint itself. I think if you just share the application instead of the window, and that's the mistake I've made before anyway. But we'll do some quick introductions, including the other folks on the panel who come from different transit agencies and unions and have supported this rail maintenance consortium work that ITLC's organized. Real quickly run through the why, what, how, and who of the consortium work, and then take a look at a really high level. We have 4 different consortium and what place they're at. If you could move forward one, Amri, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. So there's our agenda. You can move forward once more, please. So Mark mentioned, and the ITLC staff here read our bios. I want to take a moment here to recognize the folks on the line that are from those partner agencies, the membership agencies and unions that are part of the consortium. They'll also be introducing themselves towards the end and here for the questions and answers. But Don Lamotthe is the director of traction electrical systems at the Dallas Area Rapid Transit. DART operates around Dallas and 12 surrounding cities with a network of light rail, commuter rail, fixed bus routes, on-demand and paratransit services. He supervises a staff of 67 that includes technicians who maintain substations, overhead lines, electric bus charging stations, and 13.2 kilovolt switchgear, tunnel, and yard equipment. Along with his 37 years, experience in electrical construction, Don has spent 28 of those in traction electrical systems. Francis Burnett has been involved in the electrical industry since 1975, working and training at the local 103 Joint Apprenticeship Training Program. He began his career as a licensed electrician with the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 103 in Boston. Mr. Burnett recently retired from the MBTA in Boston, where he was a signal instructor for 25 years and now works as an electrical instructor at the Wentworth Institute of Technology. He also works as a trainer of the Transit Core Competencies Curriculum, a career awareness and readiness training program for high school age young people. Mr. Burnett has been heavily involved in the Signals Training Consortium for 9 years. And last but not least, Tim Tarrant started his career with Metro in Chicago in 1996 as a signal maintainer. It was here that he became involved with the Brotherhood of Railroad Signalmen and as the local president. Tim is now the vice president of commuter and passenger rail at BRS. He has been engaged with the Signals Training Consortium since its beginning in 2013 and has assisted with having the developed training program approved as a model program by the U.S. Federal Railroad Administration. Tim is passionate about a lot of things, but especially about keeping frontline workers safe. And with that, I'll hand it over to Jack to introduce International Transportation Learning Center at a high level. If you could. Thanks, Jack.
Yeah, and if you could advance the slides so we're looking at the same thing I'm going to be talking about. The International Transportation Learning Center has been around for a little over 20 years. We really see our mission as bringing labor and management together to improve training with a particular focus on frontline workers. And in a lot, Mark and I talked about this when we met briefly at the APTA conference in Seattle. With all the stuff that goes on, there are very few places where there's really that emphasis on the people doing the frontline work. And that's really what we concentrate on. We believe that doing that improves organizational performance. It expands workforce skills and abilities, promotes career advancement, and as Julie noted, promotes safety. Next slide, please. The next slide will just give you a sense. These are some of the places where we have done work. Basically, you'll see it's the entire, all of the United States, where we've had consortium activities, building apprenticeships, building local labor management partnerships, a wide range of activities around that theme of improving training and bringing the focus on frontline workers to bear. So, Julie, back to you.
Great, thanks, Jack. And I'll go into the consortium model, why it came about, what it is, who's involved. But before we do that, Like I said, I really appreciate the time you guys have on this call here, and you're obviously here for a good reason. And I really appreciate it if you could take a minute to share in the chat what your biggest challenge around maintenance training, frontline maintenance training is in the rail industry. Basically, what drove you to join here today, what challenges you're having. If you could enter that in the chat, that would be great.
Hi, Andrea here, asking you please to use the chat that you will see on the right side of your screen. There's a little square, a bubble for you to, there you go, Peter, thank you. Peter says, curiosity, always interested in new initiatives in the industry. Michael says, CWR installation and monitoring. Any other concerns and challenges, questions that you have about this area that made you come here today? New resources to enter the market in signaling and OCS. Good. Okay, we have their networking at the maintainer level. Good. Well, thank you. These are some of the concerns, Julie.
Okay, great. Thank you, Andrea. And I also imagine that a lot of you, if you could go forward one here, Amri, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. What concerns the U.S. industry was having around rail maintenance and why the consortiums came to be was looking at labor statistics and that rail lines were expanding, and knowing that a lot of people were retiring, really worrying about what the future held, how we would hire, retain, train, pass on all that information, and also changes in technologies. And along with that, the limited resources at each agency location to really address each of those singularly by themselves. If you could advance, Amri. Then the what of this and how we decided we would look at addressing these challenges is for the International Transportation Learning Center to take a role in organizing the industry to create what's listed here, a nationally recognized standard hands-on classroom training program recognized by the industry and the relevant unions, and it includes a train the trainer, mentoring, nationally recognized apprenticeship programs, and some other resources there. But basically to have one standardized program that would fit for signal maintenance, one that will fit for railcar maintenance, traction power maintenance, etc. And we'll show all those classifications a little bit later on. And the end goal being, if you could advance again, Amri, to support that full standardized program to come up with a suite of instruction-ready courseware. You'll see at the end here how many courses each of these different consortium has developed, but that each of these is really instruction ready in that all the materials are there. There's a participant guide, a very comprehensive participant guide for the learner, an instructor guide, obviously for the instructor, that includes a lot of activities and interactive points to convey that information in a classroom or a lab or hands-on setting. PowerPoint presentations, of course, and also summative and formative assessments. And many of the courses too, I'm on a different screen, Amri, I'm not sure. The one with the courseware is the one before this. I think there's a lag. Thank you. And also many of the courses, as we've had conversations with consortium members and talked about how they train and where the different issues are, we've also filled in some places with instructional videos, e-learning that can be either self-led or projected in a classroom setting and worked through as a group exercise, some hands-on checklists. And because we are developing, well, are and have developed training programs that work for up to, 20, 23 different agencies and their unions, we also offer some customization work to put in things that are specific at each location. And to assist with implementation, offer a very comprehensive train the trainer program and also train the mentor programs that help those folks that know all the information, the subject matter experts, acquire the skills on how to convey that to other people so that they can understand and pass on the knowledge. Thanks. If you could move forward, Amri, I'd appreciate it. And the next slide here is just a quick snapshot of kind of what goes into the consortium, the different pieces. There's the subject matter experts that bring a lot of experience, like the folks that are on our panel here that I introduced earlier on. The idea that it's a cost sharing, that instead of paying, I don't know, I'll just pick a number, $100,000 if you're splitting it up amongst 28 locations. And in most cases, our Federal Transit Administration also contributed half of the money. So you're splitting it into 40 pieces instead of everyone paying that as one total just for their location. And not just contributing money and all the information that's in the SME's heads, but the resources that are available, different schematics, different training materials that can be reconfigured and put into formats. This goes right into that rigorous courseware development process, part of it, that we all know that the manuals you get usually with your new equipment, they're not exactly learner friendly. So taking that and reconfiguring it in different frameworks like Gagne's 9 events of instruction that are proven to pass on that information in a way that folks can retain and apply it. That's really the fourth piece of our model there. If you could go forward once more, Amri. Thank you. And this next slide just shows a little bit more about the SMEs and the folks that have been involved in this process. We have had over the years 28, I believe, different agencies and their unions involved in the development of these training programs. Transit agencies, commuter agencies. I put down hundreds of years of experience here. We haven't calculated. I bet it's more into the thousands because the 3 SMEs we have on the line here today have 112 years of experience, just the 3 of them. I promised I wouldn't say who had the most, but and they'll also speak to the kind of less deliverable based benefits that are from this. As an ITLC project coordinator on Signals Consortium, I'm really deliverable focused. Let's get the coursework done. But sharing happens in these meetings and in between these meetings that really just happens nowhere else. We have frontline workers and trainers and similar folks at the table who have this real world experience that can share tips on technology training, people that have swapped parts, because they can't get them anyplace else, all kinds of different things. But again, I'll let the rest of the panel speak to that more in the question and answer session there at the end. Last slide, Amri, please. This last slide here is a quick snapshot of the 4 different training consortium. Our first one, Transit Elevator Escalator, started 13 years ago, and you'll be able to see in a second, whenever that slide loads, that consortium was pretty small in size comparatively, but 6 locations. And then from there, we really quickly went into Signals Maintenance Consortium, and then a Railcar Maintenance Consortium, and now Traction Power is the newest, which Amri is the lead of here. And it's important to note that the Signals Consortium last year was recognized by the Federal Railroad Administration as a model training program, which is a really big deal here in the US. FRA had put out a Rule 243 that every safety critical occupation in the railroad had to have and submit a training program that FRA would review and approve. And by having this program approved in that way, it really streamlines that process for a lot of locations and also sets a high bar. We have a program that's been developed, like I said, with hundreds, if not thousands of years of experience at the table weighing in on it, which is a really good segue into, we're going to do questions and answers next. But I would like for Tim, Don, Frank, each have a moment just to introduce yourselves before we move into that. I see you first on the list. Tim, do you want to go first?
Sure, I can do that. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, so good afternoon, everybody. So my name's Tim Tarrant, and I am the Vice President for all commuter and passenger properties that the Brotherhood of Railroad Signalmen represents. So as a little background, I currently have 14 collective bargaining agreements with 12 different agencies or contractors, including Amtrak, I have the Long Island Railroad, New Jersey Transit, Metro in Chicago, SEPTA in Philly. And then on the contractor side, we got some bigger ones, Herzog and Alstrom, and that's just to name a few. So I've either been working as or representing signalmen for nearly 29 years. Actually, Julie, I miscalculated when I read the bio. It was actually 94 I started. But anyways, a little background on me. I started as a signal helper at Amtrak in Chicago. Then I went to Metro, where I completed the Assistant Signalman's Training Program. And I worked various positions in the signal department, including I was a signal maintainer, a foreman, and a testman. On the union side, I was a local chairman, which I'm not sure if they call them local chairman up in Canada, but it's kind of like a shop steward here. And I also held various other positions in the union, including the local president's job that Julie had noted. And I went to work nationally in 2011. I've done work on the political side. I've been our director of research, which is our regulatory person. And I've held various positions, elected positions here in the Brotherhood, including the vice president East, which means I slugged it out with all the Eastern freight railroads, including CSX and NS, who's famous right now, NS is. I've been the vice president of headquarters and worked on training, kind of like union training and things along those lines for our whole membership. And now my current vice president of position, which is passengers and commuters. So, and as far as the Signals Consortium goes, I've been involved in it since its inception. And I've seen firsthand the benefits in developing courseware and the manner that they do. And I hope I get a chance to talk about how they do that. I've also had a chance to see the benefits that it's provided for the frontline signal worker, as well as the agencies that they work at. And I'll just cut it off right there and look forward to answering questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Frank, you look like you're up next on the order here for me, if you don't mind.
Sure. Hi, my name is Frank Burnett. I'm up here in Boston. My career began as an IBEW electrician back in 1975, construction electrician. And from there, I got onto the MBTA in Boston, which is our rapid public transit system. And I worked there for 30 years. And basically, I was mainly a maintainer and then promoted up to a signal instructor. And that was the last 20 plus years of my career. So I've done a lot of training, and I've had the luxury of being able to, the luxury and the pleasure of taking this consortium material, and I've trained it to frontline employees, I've trained it to engineering staff and management, but I've also been able to train it to IBEW electricians who, even before they came on to the MBTA. So I can really speak to the flexibility of the courseware, that you can take it and you can adapt it to the needs of whatever group you're training. So I've had a lot of success with that. I am still very actively involved with the consortium in training, and I've been with the consortium for 10 years. And it's a pleasure for me to be here today, and I truly believe you'll get some benefit from what you're going to hear, and possibly becoming a partner with the consortium.
Great, thanks. Oh, sorry, Frank. Was that it?
Yep, that's it.
Okay, great, thank you. And Don, if you don't mind.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Don Lamotthe. I'm Director of Traction Electrification Systems here in Dallas, Dallas Air Rapid Transit. As mentioned before, I manage 67 employees. I have a $16 million a year budget, and we maintain 211 track miles of light rail and 4 miles of streetcar. One of the reasons why we wanted to join this is because they did such great work, because our signals department was a part of the signals consortium. So once they created the Traction Power Consortium, of course, it was just natural for us to get in and get the benefits. The biggest benefit that I get from this is after, at a higher level, executive level, there's a voice for those individuals. And I've always, at DART, only AVPs and above get to attend those meetings, and we have questions. And of course, those questions never got answered by our higher level management team when they went to these meetings. And just something simple as, how often do you have destructive interfaces? Because we have 211 track miles, which is the largest light rail system in the United States, we would have these destructive interfaces, and we would have like 4 to 6 a year, thinking that's too many. But once we joined this consortium, and at a maintainer level, we were able to talk to other agencies that had similar systems, and our problems is not as big as others. So that was something that was nice, that I could fight with my my higher management team, that of course we have destructive interfaces and we need to figure these things out, but we're not as bad as other agencies, you know, and hopefully we can lend our knowledge to what we do to help them have less destructive interfaces. As far as what this consortium provides to the public transportation industry, it provides a sort of standardized training. And like my guest who was before me, where he was saying that he does with the IBEW, since I do have a relationship with IBEW here, local union here, I just thought, just on this call, that I can grow our own people by going and having this added as an element in the training program there. So this is just something I just got from it. So I'm always learning something from this. And that's one of the biggest takeaways that I get just from the coursework, is the networking at a maintainer level, because I've came through the ranks here to have my current position. I started in '96 as a maintainer. I became a supervisor in 2001, and in 2014 I was promoted to director to my current position. So I've seen a lot of things in this industry, and just to have a platform, just the platform only, is great what this program provides. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Don. That was a lot of really great stuff. And I'm just trying to be mindful of American acronyms here. So APTA is the American Public Transportation Association. And just like Don mentioned, it's really a platform for mid and upper level management folks. So yes, we're happy to take and answer your questions. You're facilitating that, correct, Andrea?
Yes, that's right. Feel free to text them. I will read one that I received from an email first. Okay, Mark, you have a question? Go ahead. Okay, so I'll be reading one that I got by email from someone who couldn't attend in person. And that was directed at the panel. Basically, why did your organizations join, and why did you stay engaged? I don't know if Tim or Dawn or Francis would like to answer that one. Why did you stay engaged? What really got you to stay in this consortium?
Well, I mean, I can briefly speak to that. The joining piece was just somebody had the initiative to recognize that it was an opportunity to enhance what was already a training program that we have. But the stay and engage part I can really address, because I immediately became actively involved in the value of being able to take this courseware. It's like I said, has the since it's produced in levels of like introductory and up to a little bit more advanced, the the opportunities to be able to take this courseware and run with it and present it in so many ways to your workforce is one of the reasons why the MBTA has stayed engaged and that they are still involved. And it's been a 10-year marriage, and hopefully they're not going to be leaving anytime soon. They have constantly seen the benefits of incorporating this material into an already existing training program.
Thank you, Francis. Tim, do you have anything to add?
I would actually. The first question is why that we became involved. Just working as as essentially as far as signal workers goes. Probably the largest labor representative. Of people that do our work in the country. Obviously, we thought that we needed to be there with as involved as we were. But once we got in, I always like to tell a little bit about how the courseware is actually developed. I sat on the steering committee, and at the time I was very new to actually working nationally. And and the way that we put this together in the States, you have the rail side, which is kind of like heavy rail that's covered under FRA regulations, and then you have the light rail side, which isn't covered under FRA regulations. So they're two kind of separate things. We call it FTA, which is Federal Transit Administration, FRA, Federal Rail Administration. And when the individual that was running the Transportation Learning Center at the time, his name was Brian Turner, he had this really kooky idea that you could put everybody together from the rail side and on the transit side, and that we'd actually be able to work out training. And I was like, this guy is out of his mind. We won't be able to do it because we're so different. And then the second part of this whole courseware, how you develop it, is that each agency only sends 2 people. And Jack could probably speak as to how the grant covers all that. But essentially, the labor side or the union picked their one smart guy, and then the company picked their one smart guy, and each one was independent on who they sent. And so when I found out that you've got rail and transit in the same room, and that you have and labor and management each individually picked, I said, we're not going to do 15 minutes in here. It's going to go crazy. Well, the day they came, we met in Silver Spring. We sat down, and I remember sitting back and looking over everybody talking. And railroaders are going to railroad, is what I always say. And they started talking a little bit about things that were going on and problems that they were having, and nobody really knew who was management, who was labor. And what ended up happening was they kind of checked their hats at the door. And when we got more formal into this process of developing it, the management would say, hey, we're the management guys and we have the right to train you. And our training is good. And then the labor guys were saying, hey, we don't dispute that. Your training is good, but there's some holes here and here and here. And the management was like, aha. And the labor guys were like, aha. And we really realized that collaboratively and together, if we worked together and checked our management and labor stripes at the door, that we could really put together something special. And that all happened in 2013. And I'm here to tell you that what that's done, at least on my side and on the agencies that are still in there, some of them pulled out, but a lot of them still stayed. What it did was it took training, which I've never thought that should be something that's on the bargaining table, but it kind of took it off the bargaining table in a certain way, because it was developed a little bit more cost effective for everybody. And it was developed collaboratively so that everybody had a say so in it. Everybody took ownership of it. And when we've taken these things back out to the field to work with them, I mean, it really works. Everybody has a say so. Everybody brings in the training that they've had on the property, looks at what's working well, looks at what isn't working, supplements it with the other, however many agencies are in there, Julie, I think 20 or 21 right now, and you come up with a really good product. So good that even the Federal Railroad Administration made that Part 243, that's a federal regulation, they made it certified. And that's not something that just happens all the time. So I probably spoke too long, but I thought it was important to, we said this earlier, to kind of discuss how the sausage was kind of ground up and made to the programs that you guys have now. So
thank you very much, Tim and Francis, for your input. We have another question here. How have you been able to reach out to people outside the industry to promote the industry and to get more people aware of the career opportunities in this industry? What examples have worked?
Well, I can speak to that. The consortium also was part of a TC3 program, which is a transit core competencies, which actually addresses a younger workforce or people who may not have the awareness of the transportation industry. And that's another training that I'm very actively involved in. In fact, we have one coming up here in Springfield next month. And what it does is it speaks to young people, getting out of school, whether it's high school, whether it's college. And it just, it promotes so many career opportunities that are in the transit and rail industry. And we've had a lot of people who we've gone through and we've showed them the opportunities, and they have stayed connected with us and tried to make that career move, getting into transit. So it's called TC3, but it's another program that the Transportation Learning Center has developed.
Thank you for that, Frank. And another piece, which it can get a little bit confusing, but also another hat that ITLC wears is we're a technical assistance center for the Federal Transit Administration around all things frontline workforce development for rail. And I dropped into the chat there. One of the deliverables through that project is a recruitment toolkit, which has a whole lot of different templates that have been very mindfully created through best practices and research that folks can use at their own location, swap out pictures, text, logos, that sort of thing. Jack may be able to speak more to that, but that's another resource.
Thank you, Julie. In case you can't see the chat right now, we will be sharing this link with you later too. That's www.transitworkforce.org/connecting my community. Very well. I have other questions here. Chris is asking, are there any plans to add curriculum around the construction of rail?
I would say, and I'm not quite sure the breadth of your question there, Chris, but in the Signals Consortium, and when you saw that snapshot of how long we've been together, each consortium has been tasked with an initial scope of somewhere between 3 to 4 years to cover the APTA standards, recommended practices, to cover the bulk of what an apprenticeship program would cover. And Tim mentioned like folks dropping out. At the end of that point for Signals, a couple locations that say, we're done, we'll move on with our lives, but the vast majority stayed on, and each year, because they just see the need and they know that we developed a lot of things. Also, there's new challenges coming down the line, and we want to be prepared, and this is the best forum to be prepared. And one of the things that came out of that was the membership saying it would be great if we had an installation and construction standards course. And which has been developed with the audience in mind of the signal maintainer. They may not be the people actually constructing the rail systems, but knowing about what you should see in the field and what you shouldn't, basically was the idea around that. If that helps answer your question, Chris. Sure.
I would just add just a little bit to that if people decide to join a consortium or however this is, going to work for the Transportation Learning Center, you have a say-so on the type of courseware that you would develop if you wanted to come in. If the need for your property is like a construction standard, then as Julie said, on the signal side, I remember that we had put something together to work on that. And so that's kind of your base where you can go and you can bring in, hey, that's going to work for us, or no, that doesn't. But that's where the, when they get together and the courseware designers come in and they develop that piece specifically for your property, depending on what level that you join in the consortium. And again, that's kind of the neat thing about being involved in all this. And Frank hit on it, and I think Don did too, is that, you're networking, and, you don't have to reinvent the wheel to put a standard in. Somebody might have already had that particular piece of equipment that you're putting in, and they can help you with what that is. The idea is that not only are labor and management working collaboratively together, but all the different agencies kind of are, to put together that quality training at something that doesn't break the bank, because we all know how hard it is to get OEMs to come in and give training on some of the equipment that they put in. And then on top of that, how hard it is to put together a training budget to adequately assess, what your membership needs. So,
just real briefly, I'll add to that. The consortium does they work with you individually. They really partner with you, and they offer custom training. There's like 100 hours of customization of training. There's a trainer section. So sometimes a various agency might need something that's a little outside the box of what we have developed as a large group, but then you can get the buy-in, which is all part of the program, of having the center literally come out to your agency and work with you in a very customized level, and that's huge. I remember years back when Julie came out to the MBTA when myself and the other instructor were putting stuff together, and I just can't speak enough about the partnership of the talent of the subject matter experts working with the instructional designers and then presenting this material to whatever staff there is. I could go on and on about it. So there's a lot of customization that is extremely valuable.
It's absolutely, just to add on to Frank, it's absolutely amazing. We would get in, and I developed a large part of the courseware, a lot of stuff on crossings, and we'd get into a conversation. We'd be in there for 2 hours talking about how to properly do whatever it was. It could have been like an FRA type crossing test, something along those lines. No matter what the topic was, we'd sit there and discuss it and have a good, robust discussion for an hour and a half. And then the next thing you know, that person that's trying to guide it, like Julie, kind of going back a couple of hats for you when you were really doing the instructional design work, at the end of it, we'd have everything that we talked about laid out and put into almost like a training format, and capturing all the key ideas that we talked about. And that it's just unbelievable at how beneficial that was, because you're not even thinking about half the things that you talked about, but those ISDs that are sitting in that room did, and caught it all, and really come up with great pieces of training.
I would also like to add, since people are wondering why I'm on the panel and I hadn't said much, is our Signals Consortium, our Signals department has been part of the Signals Consortium for a long time. So we were praying for the day that they would open this up for Traction Power. So we've only been in this since 2019 is when I believe we engaged with the training center. And of course, 2019 is when we were in the middle of, the start of the pandemic. But we were able to convey a lot of information to this organization. I mean, Teams, emails. So when it did open up for us, we hosted an event and we got so much information. And we have new management here coming from Chicago by way of LA, our new COO. He didn't see a need for us to be in it. So initially he pulled us out. And then he also pulled out the vehicle techs as well. But then once we told him how we were engaging and how beneficial this was, he allowed us to host the event. And the repository of knowledge that they have and what we contributed, it was just so great. And I mean, I'm still learning things just on this call, like I said before, how they're engaging with their union to add a curriculum, and you can home grow or start an apprenticeship with the knowledge that's being created through this platform. It's such a great thing. And I know I'm being a salesman, but being new to this, it just, the words are unspeakable how this program has benefited me in my current position. I wear so many hats, especially with the institutional knowledge drain that we have due to this pandemic. I wear so many hats, and just to be relieved that there's an organization that we can give our information to and set up our training department to interface with them and to come up with the curriculum, it just takes so much off of me. And I know you could tell the frustration from me, but that's where we at here in this industry with the institutional knowledge drain and the many hats that I have to wear here. It just takes so much pressure off of us that we have somebody partnership with our training that we can, it can live beyond what we're doing now. And that's all I have.
Yeah, thank you, Don. That was beautiful. And, reinvigorates me in the work we're doing too, this sort of discussion. I wanted to just add on, because it's been mentioned a couple times, the when you're a member, there are bi-weekly webinars that we use to develop the materials. So you're developing materials there. Also, I know when I host those, I leave time for folks just to talk about things, like, do you have any pressing things that you want to get feedback from peers on? We also, as part of the membership, pay the reasonable travel costs for one frontline worker and one management level person from each member location to attend an annual meeting. And DART hosted last year for Traction Power, and I don't know if you know or not, Don, but signals will be out there this fall. So just that's part of it.
That's fantastic, Julie. Thank you, everyone, for your answers. We have more questions, so I'm going to keep reading them. Have any of the unions in Canada reached out to leverage your curriculum? And how can we approach them to get them more engaged and have their members trained?
I can help answer that, I think. What we've had in the Railcar Consortium, we've had Edmonton Transit, ETS, has been very interested in the program and in the curriculum. And they even attended one of our meetings, our in-person meetings that Julie just mentioned. I'm not sure it's from the union side, but I know that the location was definitely very interested in attending. And I believe there was another Canadian property that joined us for just showing some interest. With Traction Power, for sure, there have been a couple of Canadian agencies that have heard about what we're doing and were curious about the courseware. And not just Canadian, but other transit properties that are not part of the consortium. They've also been hearing about the work and want to know, how can we get a hold of this courseware?
Yeah, what Jack and I had to do up in Boston was we physically went to the Union Hall and we promoted the course. And at that time, we were able to convince them to buy in. So like anything else, sometimes there might have to be buy-in where you might have to present it to them and show them the value. And Jack and I were able to do that. And IBEW Boston was part of the consortium for a couple of cycles. They're not currently active as of now, but they were part of it for a couple of cycles. And I still have the ability to bring the program to them because they bought in and they own the material. So I think presenting it to them is one of the ways that you're going to get the unions to maybe have some buy-in.
I would also, I think you're muted, Jack, but.
Unmute yourself, Jack.
The biggest union involvement we've had in Canada has actually been around bus, not rail. And the Amalgamated Transit Union has been very engaged in how you get ready for the transition to zero emission bus. The Toronto Transit Commission and ATU Local 113 have been involved in another project we have, which is looking at building a safer bus. But we've had, Amri just described some of the interactions we've had in railcar going way back. Both Toronto and Vancouver had expressed some interest in elevator escalator, but we have not had a lot of Canadian involvement on the rail side.
I would also just add this on too, at least on more of a granular level. One of our smaller properties that we represent, down in the south of Florida, most agreements have like a training clause that's in it. They've been having a really hard time, this particular agency, with getting any kind of value, as far as training goes, because they were kind of too small to set up their own training program. So generally they would have to either, bring like a signal training agency down to their property, which each property is a little bit different. Each one has a little bit different of equipment. And so they weren't really getting, the kind of training that the frontline workforce needed. So it kind of fell on like their manager of their signals to be able to do that. And if they tried to send them out in the States, there's Signals Training Solutions, there's Big J, there's all these different agencies that they can, or not agencies, different companies that provide signal training or even do a class 1, but they weren't getting the right thing. And so just recently, we've been in talks with trying to actually, through the collective bargaining process, to get that agency involved, because they were like, hey, we get to do what? We're going to have, them going to come down and help us train, like a train the trainer program. You're going to help us develop this, and you're going to look at what our stuff is. And that's kind of where we're at right now. So to answer your question, to get them involved, again, I can't keep beating that drum enough, but the collaborative approach where you go in and say, hey, let's sit down and talk about, perhaps joining this, type of a scenario where we're developing our training equally, and we're going to get connected to some different agencies, whether you're in the States or here, and to have access to that courseware, I think might, maybe that's the answer that you guys go. So.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I have here something that Jim Charbonneau said. He says, I am very interested in learning management systems and multimedia content development to accelerate education and certification. I'm happy to contribute in this focus. So thanks, Jim. And I think that we're starting to see that there is a spirit of collaboration. If you want to comment.
Yeah, definitely always happy to work together. Also, I don't know if this is a good segue. We do have, that is where our courseware is hosted, is a learning management system, the Transportation Learning Network. And the e-learning piece, Tim was highlighting it earlier, we're getting into that field. It's kind of uncanny, actually, that we started to do that really, gosh, probably 4 months before the pandemic hit, and then everyone's mind really opened up a lot more to e-learning for the obvious reasons. But one of the very interactive and beneficial things that we've developed that have come out of that time after the initial scope, and for 3 years running, the membership has said, we want more of these interactive troubleshooting scenarios. It's a situation where you go in, you're presented with a real world problem, and you can hunt around and go into the field, take different readings, place probes where they need to be, see what the results are. You can go and call central control and ask about what the conditions are out there, what sort of information they've gathered, things like that. And from that process, decide what the root cause of the problem is. And we've developed, I'm going to say 10 to 12 of them for the Signals Consortium at this point, to varying degrees of difficulty. So, but yeah, that's another great thing that comes out of, Tim talked about what a great thing it is to work with an instructional design team. I think Jack knows that if it weren't for the SMEs, I probably would still be here, but you're a big reason I am, and how fun it is also. But the fact that you bring that sort of expertise to the table here, Mark, we have that in other ways. Like we have a guy in Niagara Frontier in Buffalo, New York, that is big into videography, has a drone and does the videos that way, and is, helped contribute some materials. And it's really nice and efficient to have a group of folks together that not only have those hundreds of years of experience, but also unique skill sets and passions to bring things to contribute.
Yeah. So. And from a practical standpoint, and the signal craft, and I don't know how many people that are, listening in on this webinar are in the signal craft, but just speaking from my own experience, and I think even from a management perspective, having a safe place for, a signal maintainer, especially one of our younger ones, to come out and, oh, hey, I have a crossing that, that's not working right. And he can actually poke around and learn best practices on a case of trouble in a controlled environment, and not out in the field, where he might make a mistake or he can't get in touch with somebody. I mean, that's huge for us to be able to have that. I mean, he can learn, some of the lessons that, some of us guys that have been around a minute, had to learn kind of the hard way back in the 90s coming up with new technology and things. And I just can't stress enough about how much of a benefit that is, that they can learn, even in some cases, learn what not to do. When they're out there doing some troubleshooting in that controlled environment. It's a really big deal. So
that's okay. Thank you very much. I did have a last question that was sent to me by text. I don't know if you have a chance. We only have 5 minutes left. I'll share my screen, by the way. We only have 5 minutes left in the webinar. So if anyone has any other questions that they'd like to ask, either email Andrea or myself, or we'll give you Julie, Amri, and Jack's email if they want to contact them directly. So if you can give me, I guess, a short response, if possible, and then we can close it off if you have any closing words to say to the group. Have you explored sharing international best practice for things such as delivery methods and resource development?
Okay, so thanks for that question, Mark. It's a good one. And also, all the panelists here have also agreed to share their contact information, their email addresses. So if you want to ask someone that's not, biased in some way, because this is our product, but folks that are on the other end of it, feel more than free to do that too. I'm sure Andrea will share that. And just so I'm clear, Mark, you mean training delivery methods, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. So,
and this is not my question. It was sent to me from a text,
okay.
So my apologies.
Understood. So the train the trainer piece is the answer to that question, I suppose. We, as instructional designers, we're pretty entrenched in the learning and development world and best practices and new trends and new science behind things. And that's what's gone into developing our Train the Trainer programs, which at this point, there's two different levels of that. There's one that is teaching techniques, which is adult learning theory and instructional methods, a lot of practice teaching with peer feedback and giving feedback, which is also a very important skill for a classroom or a field teacher, trainer. And the second level of the Train the Trainer, which is a different course, is on resource development and thinking outside of the box of making a course. Let's start with a blank PowerPoint slide, really thinking through what the objectives are, what's the real outcome, like in 2 sentences, what is the impact you're going to make with this course, and thinking creatively in a team about how you can incorporate different role plays even, or instructional methods. Like one thing we introduced there is University of Idaho here came up with a study that has 52 different instructional methods, exposing that to folks to just kind of broaden how they approach that and work with folks through that week and a little coaching afterwards too, virtually, to really develop materials, not just hear the theory, but at each point we'll go over what's in a learning objective, and they'll actually develop those and get the feedback. And lesson planning, what is that about? What are the 9 events? And break that out. So yes, we do that, is the short answer.
Wonderful. I'll give you, I guess, 2 minutes to, if you have any closing discussions or closing comments, feel free to mention it. Otherwise, we can just conclude and just give some housekeeping announcements. So feel free to yeah.
I guess, do any of you folks, because I would just, again, thank you guys, and really encourage you to reach out if you want to see more of the details on the courseware. We're happy to share a course catalog or so that outlines some of these things in more detail. But you really just don't understand the breadth and the impact and of it until you really see it in action, is what I would say. It's hard to summarize virtually in 30, 60 minutes, but
absolutely. And we have a lot of transit agency members in attendance. We will be posting this on our website for people to view it as well. So anyone interested in exploring more about the center's work and potential opportunities to develop your internal and external staff, I would encourage you to reach out to both either TRACCS or directly to the center to help with that. I really want to thank the panel for taking the time and effort to put this together and taking the time out of your busy days. Really appreciate your insight and guidance, and we hope that we can continue this discussion moving forward. I think it's really worthwhile. We do have a lot of work going on in Canada, and we do have a shortage of labor, and training is probably our best tool to at least address some of it. So as I mentioned, I think it's really encouraging to see that there is material already available, and it should be used or leveraged as best as possible moving forward, especially in Canada. So thank you again. Last housekeeping thing. I know, Andrea, you're going to be promoting TRACCS Rail Day. So please register online. We have an exciting event scheduled for June that we hope that everyone can attend and or participate in. Feel free to reach out to myself or Andrea or Jen or any of our board members involved. Any questions, don't hesitate to reach us. And thank you very much for attending. Have a great rest of the week. Andrea, is there anything else that I missed?
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you again to everybody for the time, for the answers. And yes, we do have TRACCS Rail Day coming up. It's on June 20 and 21st at the International Center. You can go to our website, traccs.ca/TRD23. But we also have day after tomorrow an interesting presentation and interview with Paris Marx about what Silicon Valley gets wrong about the future of transportation. Paris Marx just wrote a very interesting book. Yes, that's right. We all have it here. So this is Paris's book. Well, you'll see better in a couple of days. Register for that. That's also free to all our members. As well, we have our annual general meeting in a week. So make sure that you RSVP, all our members. All this information is on our website, and we will send an email reminder as well. And we have another webinar by Ricardo on March 30th on delivering the Elizabeth line, system engineering successes and challenges. So as you can see, we're busy. We're delivering as much value as we can. And please take all the opportunities to connect with Julie, Jack, Amri, and their incredibly talented panel of Timothy, Francis, and Dawn. Again, thank you very much, and I hope you have a wonderful week. Connect with us, and you can expect an email from me with all this info pretty packaged so that you don't miss out. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank